For more on this story, let's welcome in the president of Shirley and Banister Public Affairs and presidential historian Craig Shirley. Craig, of course, the author of the newly released book, Last Act, The Final Years and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan. Also joining us, pollster and senior analyst for Zogby Analytics, John Zogby. John, of course, co-authored the book, First Global's Understanding, Managing, and Unleashing Our Millennial Generation. So, here is Dr. Ben Carson taking on the media, posting this in response on Facebook to the Wall Street Journal report on his time at Yale, questioning a course he took. He says, "Allow me to do the research for the Wall Street Journal reporter. Here is a syllabus for the class you claim never existed." Craig Shirley, first to you. This narrative, this insistent drumbeat now from the dominant media culture, is Dr. Carson finding an effective way to bounce back from all the allegations?
Oh, I think absolutely, JD. The best ploy in politics is always to be on permanent offense. And he's taken, let's face it, there's conservatives and Republicans, as we've known for many years, don't like the mainstream media with good reason, is that they are biased and they're hypocritical and they have a double standard. Is that he's absolutely right about Barack Obama and their nonchalance about his record and his sealed files versus going through everything in his life with a fine-tooth comb. Another aspect of this that complicates it even more is that the mainstream liberal media really doesn't like the idea of women or African Americans being conservative. It defies their view of the world, and so that makes it doubly problematic for the mainstream media. But I think he's fighting a good counteroffensive, and he's doing a good job of it.
John Zogby, it is a familiar Republican conservative refrain talking about media bias, but Ben Carson is also crediting the criticism of the press with raking in $3.5 million. Has it gotten to the point where independents and folks who may not be so conservative are fed up with a media double standard?
Oh, absolutely. And the polls clearly show it. The mainstream media gets very low marks and is not relied upon by a majority of Americans as main source of news. So what you have here really is the media appearing to just simply go after numbers or appearing almost in a death rattle sort of phase. And they seem to be flailing, and at the same time you have two candidates at least who are making gains on the basis of attacking the media. Although you can argue, even in the last debate, Marco Rubio scored a lot of points, Ted Cruz, Chris Christie even picked up actually a couple of points in more recent polls. A lot of it having to do with attacking the media openly.
And John, we're going to get to one of your new polls in just a second. But first, Craig, I want to go back to Ben Carson, not on the attack, but in Puerto Rico over the weekend, endorsing the notion that PR could be our 51st state. Let's take a look.
And I would be incredibly honored and delighted for Puerto Rico to be the 51st state.
Now, I expect that from some candidates, but not from Ben Carson. Will this policy initiative create problems for the good doctor?
No, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, Reagan in 1979 flirted with making Puerto Rico the 51st state. He also flirted with what he called a American alliance, economic alliance between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, although later it was mostly shelved, although there was the Caribbean Basin Initiative, which was designed to stave off Soviet advances in communism. But it's kind of a political move. I don't think it'll ever go anyplace. They've been trying to do it for many years, and it really hasn't gone anyplace. Puerto Rico really has the best of all worlds, is that they don't pay taxes, and they collect American largesse, and they're considered to be American citizens and can vote in American presidential campaigns. So sometimes I think that the status quo is right now the best thing for Puerto Rico.
Well, they've got a mountain of debt down there creating some real problems. But we'll leave aside economics to go to some other numbers, specifically those proffered by John Zogby at Zogby Analytics. Your latest poll coming out, John, still has Donald Trump substantially in the lead, Ben Carson about half as much support, Marco Rubio, the final candidate, in double digits with 10%. Now, you are quick to point out that there's a difference between being a pundit and a pollster. You are both. What do the latest numbers show you?
More so that Donald Trump is holding on to his support, not losing it. More importantly, that none of the more mainstream candidates are making significant gains. I think you make an argument that Marco Rubio has gained a couple of points. Ted Cruz did as well. But Donald Trump still leads. No one has really emerged as a major establishment or insider challenger to Donald Trump yet.
Craig Shirley, there you are ensconced across the Potomac from Washington, D.C. What is the sense you get from the D.C. Republican establishment? Will their support now shift from Jeb Bush because of his lagging numbers to Marco Rubio? And will Rubio continue to gain support given an establishment push?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, JD. I think the rats have already jumped ship on Jeb Bush and are swimming now toward Marco Rubio's boat. I don't know if, quite frankly, there's enough of the D.C. establishment to overcome both Trump and Carson. I also find, in being on book tour for the last month or so, an astonishing number of people who are coming to grips favorably with the idea of Donald Trump not only being the nominee of the Republican Party, but possibly also being the next president of the United States. It's really astonishing how much that's changed just the last couple months.
Well, let's talk some to John Zogby about that. We see different polls that put Trump as a guy who people are accepting as the Republican nominee. Will they make that last move and envision Trump as a president? About 45 seconds. John?
It's still too early to tell. I do think someone else will emerge on the basis of history. You know, and a more establishment candidate normally does emerge from the pack, you know, very close to Iowa and then in Iowa and New Hampshire. The important thing, however, is the other poll that shows that Hillary is very close in a battle against both Trump and Carson. They give the strongest race against her, Rubio as well. But the three of them give Hillary a very, very close race.
So as it stands right now, to make sure I understand, Trump, Rubio, and Carson would run closest against Hillary if the election were held today?
In my polling, yes.
All right, very good. We'll close it out there on those numbers. John Zogby in Utica, New York. Craig Shirley in Northern Virginia. Gentlemen, you have our thanks. Now, need to take note of this programming reminder. Here on Newsmax TV tomorrow night, a post-debate special, which, as is implied, after the debate, immediately following tomorrow night's GOP debate, we plan on starting around about 11 p.m. Eastern Time. All-star guests expected on the program, including talk show host Michael Savage, the two gents you just saw, John Zogby and Craig Shirley, along with Dick Morris, and a couple of additional surprises. And in fact, as a viewer, you will have a special web address to weigh in on and to actually vote on who wins tomorrow night's debate. That is our post-debate special, 11 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night, only here on Newsmax TV. Up next, Donald Trump and Ben Carson in their own words.